Thank you so much for joining us on the Voice of Job Seekers. This is Mark, and you're listening to the podcast where I bring you relevant voices and relatable voices, and also to bring a voice to the unemployed, underemployed, and underappreciated members of the workforce. I'm always trying to reimagine the job search and provide modern job search techniques and tools through relatable voices for every job seeker. If you haven't gotten my free guide for a job search guide, I want to invite you to come to bit.ly/118 job search tips. It's free. You'd sign up for my newsletter that you'd receive at least once a month during the summer, and then during the fall, you'd receive one every other week. Today, I have a very special guest with kind of a different approach to not particularly just a job search, but a view in which I've shared many times on the show, that trying to remove bias one hire at a time. That's part of her tagline. Her site is career.place. Her name is Melissa Dobbins, and she's joining us today from Austin, Texas. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having a conversation here as we talk about trying to remove bias from the hiring process. And I see and notice, and as we've talked, you're very passionate about this subject. And probably if you can give us a little idea of the genesis of the idea for the site, and perhaps a little bit about the passion you have for removing bias from hiring.
Absolutely. So my whole profession has been in technology.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman in technology, you might imagine I'm familiar with bias.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with fantastic teams, diverse teams, incredibly creative teams. And I've also worked with teams that have suffered from bias, suffered from who they brought on board, and it created a vacuum of creativity because everyone thought alike. And I saw what it did to these companies, to my products, to the things that I was so passionate about seeing successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an engineer at my heart. When I see a problem, I get an overwhelming desire to fix it. And this was a problem that I thought was worth fixing, not just for me, not just for the companies, but for our children, for
mm-hmm.
my two girls, as
mm-hmm.
they come in and hopefully one of them becoming an engineer.
Yeah. Well, we all would like the one to follow in our footsteps, of course, if not both. So your expectations, do you find that, or you feel like you're peeling back your expectations some as you venture out, or do you feel like you're not going in particular with time and a date expectation, but you're going in with being able to just peel back the layers that are there and exist already?
So we launched the Career.place application, the solution, a little over a month ago at the beginning of April. And we've been in conversations with a lot of different people throughout the process. And I will say I'm highly encouraged, because there are so many people out there in various roles, from people like you who are trying to get the word out and make sure that the challenges are understood and the people who need to have a voice, to those who are in HR, to those that are in recruiting and in diversity and inclusion offices. Not only is there awareness that there's bias that's affecting business and that we need to remove it, especially from things like bringing in talent,
Mm-hmm.
but there is movement and there's excitement around being able to be part of the solution.
Yeah. Do you find?
I think we're at an exciting time.
Yeah. Do you find that some of the pieces that already exist, like diversity and inclusion offices and officers or people who are in charge of that, do you think that they're making a headway as you see it, or do you think part of that is being stifled?
I think we are at a good start.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely people out there that are making excellent progress, and others who are looking for leadership to understand how to make progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a
There
good.
is there's a lot of open questions,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of players who are trying to come to answers. Of course, the solution that we've come up with, I particularly believe in, where you remove the bias from hiring by removing the identities of the individuals from being seen by the employers, and instead focus on what the individuals can do and focus on what requirements they meet, what needs they fulfill, how they approach challenges. And that way, when employers are reviewing their candidates, because they're anonymous, they're only reviewing what it is that they need for the job,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody is treated fairly and equally.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that there are companies that actually have apps and technology that actually does that. A lot of them
Hmm.
are, and if not most of them or all of them, they have trouble getting funding. Uh, do you have any idea what would be? I mean, you know what people are going to say, that I am not racist or anything, but a lot of it doesn't have to do with racist. A lot of it has to do with the preconceived notions that are already embedded in someone's character or their perspective. But is there anything that you can reimagine that could take some of those challenges out?
Yeah, and you brought up a very good point. The difference between somebody who, as they put it, racist versus biased.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very challenging part of this world because no one wants to look in the mirror and think that they're part of the problem. No one wants to have that burden on their heart that they're not giving people a fair chance. And I don't think that's what's happening. I think that's what's getting in the way of addressing the real issue, which is bias.
Mm-hmm.
And bias is the human shortcut. We need them. We absolutely need our biases. It's a part of who we are because it's what allows us, for example, in a very mundane way, to buy cereal at the supermarket without taking hours to try every box.
Right.
We come to conclusions based on our preferences. The problem is we're applying these preferences to people. And as humans, we aren't like cereal boxes. It doesn't work the same way. So it's getting in our way of making the right decision.
Right.
From a technology standpoint, from the players that are out there that are looking to solve this problem, there's a lot of different flavors. Some of them are more effective than others, and some of them don't quite get to the solution. So, for example, blocking out a name on a resume, it's a good start, but there's a lot of other biasing information in that resume, and that could still trigger the biases that are giving some people unfair advantages over others.
Sure. Sure. Let's talk about women and the biases that that are there that are so. We know a lot of the common ones. How about some of the uncommon biases that women are affected by? Can you think of any that? I mean, we know the obvious ones. One being a woman. Second might be a woman who is, a little aged or over 40. I shouldn't even say a little age. That sounds like a thing, but it really has become a thing for corporations and those who are entertaining hiring them.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to women specifically with biases, of course, there's the common biases and then there's the uncommon biases. Everything from what kind of hobbies a woman might have or what they find entertaining, what color their hair is a bias. And you brought up that I wrote a blog article about wanting to keep my hair gray rather than coloring it. Mm-hmm. There's biases that come with the color of your hair. But that being said, it's not just women. There are biases that affect everybody.
Sure.
I have yet to meet an individual who doesn't suffer from some common or uncommon bias that has led others to jump to a conclusion. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge for us all.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you indicated that it's something that we have to take an extra step or two to overcome and to get rid of it in the hiring process. But isn't there a lot of overflow from personal to the hiring that we haven't noticed or we haven't considered yet, as far as you can see?
Well, I think when it comes to the hiring process, there's two aspects to it. And what we're tending to do is blending them together. The first is the objective qualification. Can this person do the job, do it effectively, and bring value to my company?
Mm-hmm.
That can be done independent of bias, and it absolutely should be done independent of bias. That's where something like the anonymity of career.place really makes a difference, because you can objectively and fairly qualify people all going through the same process in a consistent way.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece is, do I want to work with you? That's a very personal question. It's a very important question for the team, for the hiring manager, for the company, the culture. So there is that next step of, do I want to work with you? Do you, as a candidate, want to work with me? And it's equally important both sides. It's not going to work unless both sides are energized by the individuals, by the team, by the culture. That piece has to happen as well. Mm-hmm. What the difference is if you can do the objective evaluation first, then do the emotional evaluation, then you're emotionally evaluating people who are qualified for the position.
Yeah, I think
makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think there's so much to unpack here, and only so much time we have to unpack. But career.place is the actual URL, career.place. And that's brilliant marketing, by the way. The name is actually the URL as well. If people want to know more about you and your services, people should go to the site.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Melissa Dobbins, CEO and founder of Career.place, thank you so much. In the meantime, I do thank the rest of you for coming out in September. We'll catch up on the news one more and signed up for it. Go ahead and do so. Thanks a lot, and look forward to talking. Now, I need to see for the last episode of the year. Okay.